When you are 101 years old, you just don't move the way you used to move. Take it from me. And when you're 101 years old and you're in a wheelchair, there are some mobility issues. Getting in and getting out is different. Getting up and getting down is different. Travel is different. Getting in an airplane is different. And all of a sudden, when you're 101 years old, the idea of getting in an airplane and traveling over international waters to go to Europe at 101 kind of seems like it's Simus. Kind of a younger person's game. When you're 101 in a wheelchair, let the world come to you. You deserve that. But there is a man named Hilbert Margol who at the age of 100 and very much in a wheelchair did that whole Simus. He did the in and out and the up and down with the wheelchair. He did the in and out and the up and down with limited mobility. And he got on that plane and he went to France. He didn't go to France for the food. He didn't go to France for the Eiffel Tower. He didn't go to France for the Louvre. He went to France to go to Normandy, to see all the fallen soldiers who gave their lives to fight Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. And there's this iconic photograph of Hilbert Margol in a wheelchair, so human. He's cold. He's wearing a coat. He's wearing gloves. Has a blanket draped on his person. And his face is creased with worry. And his face is creased with anxiety. And he is sitting near the matzevot, the monuments of Jewish and Christian and Muslim American soldiers who gave their lives as very young people to fight Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. That was when he was only 100. He's doing it again in a couple of weeks. He is going again at 101 with the same wheelchair to Normandy to do it again. And the question is, why? And the question is, what does his doing that mean to us? And the question is, how does his doing that claim us? So a little background. Hilbert Margol, 80 years ago, was a 21-year-old private first class who fought together with his twin brother, Howard Margol, who has subsequently passed away. Hilberg and Howard were private first classes in the age of 21 for the 42nd Infantry Division of the United States Army. And the 42nd Infantry Division had a unique name. It was called the Rainbow Division. And the name Rainbow Division came because Douglas MacArthur in World War I gave it that name. And the idea was we're going to take National Guard units from 26 different states and the District of Columbia, and we're going to have a Rainbow Division that covered the breadth of this great country, the United States. And in World War II, the Rainbow Division of the 42nd U.S. Army Infantry was commanded by a Major General Harry Collins. And General Collins was committed to fighting anti-Semitism in the Army. And he felt that there could not be a rainbow division unless there were a Jewish chaplain of that division. And the Jewish chaplain would turn out to be Rabbi Eli Bonin, who's the father of Michael and the father-in-law of Joyce Bonin. And Rabbi Bonin was with the Rainbow Division, and it was March 28th, 1945. And they're in Germany. They're in a town in Germany called Bonn, Germany. And the war is going on. The war has not been won. The troops are still fighting. And on March 28th, 1945, Passover happens. And Rabbi Bonin has this idea. There are 800 Jewish soldiers in the Rainbow Division. And it's Pesach. How can we do a Seder in Germany during the war? So they find a building to do it in. The building is a Nazi building with the address 29 Adolf Hitler Street. So they're going to do a Seder for 800 Jewish soldiers in the Rainbow Division of the 42nd Infantry during World War II at 29 Adolf Hitler Street. But two miracles needed to happen before that could happen. One, how could they get Haggadot for 800 soldiers? Rabbi Bonin had one Haggadah called the Rainbow Haggadah. Footnote, the Bonin family has been running Seders with the Rainbow Haggadah on Nathan Road, 7-minute walk from here, ever since. Rabbi Bonin had the first Rainbow Haggadah, but how does one Rainbow Haggadah become 800 Rainbow Haggadot? There was no Kinko's, there was no Staples. So there was a little bit of a Hanukkah miracle around Pesach. They found an old mimeograph machine in the Nazi headquarters on Adolf Hitler Street. And it was dirty and it was dusty. And again, war, they don't have cleaning supplies. They don't have Fantastic. They don't have wipes. They don't have paper towels. They find 2 Nazi flags. And they use the Nazi flags to clean the mimeograph machine. And then they make 800 Haggadot from the one. First problem solved. Next problem. How are you going to find kosher LePesach food in Bonn, Germany? That's just so far from the butchery. All they have, for the most part, is powdered eggs. And Rabbi Bonin does a Pesach miracle and finds kosher LePesach food for 800 Jewish soldiers in the Rainbow Division in 1945 in Nazi Germany. And he writes about it in a biography that Michael offered about his father. These are Eli Bonin's words, contemporaneous. The Seder was wonderful. Everything worked out perfectly. We had a huge crowd, and the men could not believe the whole thing possible. We had roast chicken, boiled potatoes, compote of prunes, apricots and raisins, matzah, wine, and tea. Also, hard-boiled eggs, which was almost unbelievable since we eat powdered eggs most of the time. We also had horseradish, green onions, and charoses. The general came and gave us a very fine talk. It was the happiest day of the war for almost everybody there. That was on March 28th, 1945. 1 month and 1 day later, on April 29th, 1945, the Rainbow Division would liberate Dachau. Now we know what happened at Dachau and what happened at all the camps. But remember, nothing like this had ever happened in human history. Mass genocide on this scale had never happened. And so there was no pattern recognition. There was no template. And Hilbert Margol says simply that when we got to Dachau and saw what we saw, we did not even understand what we were seeing. We couldn't process what we were seeing. So Hilbert Margol is an eyewitness to and a personal participant in major events in Jewish history and in human history. He's there for the Rainbow Seder at 29 Adolf Hitler Street. And 1 month and 1 day later, he's there to liberate Dachau. And that was 80 years ago when he was 21. And now, he's 101. And he's still in a wheelchair. And he was there last year at 100. But he is bound and determined to get there again, wheelchair jacket and blanket and all. And the question is, why? And the question is, what does that mean to us? So, next week is April 29th. Next week is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Dachau. And the question is, what is the character of that commemoration? Is it a celebration, or is it something else? Now, in an ideal world, it would be a big and robust celebration. In an ideal world, we would say, oh my God, 80 years ago, there was evil in the world, and there was hatred in the world, and there was cruelty in the world, and human beings were doing unspeakable things to human beings. But thank goodness that evil has been vanquished, and that evil is gone, and that evil will never come back. And now we can celebrate the vanquishing of evil. Let's celebrate. But we all know that that's not our world. We all know that our world is the opposite of that world. And so the 80th is not a celebration of our past. The 80th is a warning about our future. We all know that authoritarianism and fascism and totalitarianism is on the rise. We all know that xenophobia and hatred and anti-Semitism is on the rise. We all know that 80 years later, seeing Tselem Elohim, the image of God in other people, is on the decline. We all know that common decency is on the decline. We all know that a sense of history, that when fascism takes roots, there are millions of dead people. When fascism takes hold, millions of dead people. And holding that history and learning from that history is on the decline. Fascism and its fruits are on the rise. And that's not remotely debatable. It's profoundly and ineffably sad. There's not even words to convey how sad. But no reasonable person can dispute it. Consider this question. Germany brought us the Holocaust. How is Germany doing 80 years later? So there's bad news and worse news. The bad news is that in February, just a few months ago, Germany's far-right party, AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, which had always been fringe, always been marginal, always been peripheral, never had broad public support. It was the second most popular vote getter in the election in late February. And it is the single largest opposition party in Germany, based on February's election results. And its co-leader, Alice Weidel, exulted after the election, "We have never been stronger. We're the second leading force in Germany today." And that's the bad news. The worst news is that the most recent polls show that the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, is now the most popular party. The centrist party that won the election has lost support, and the AfD has gained support. One out of four Germans, 25%, according to the most recent polls, supports this alternative vision, the far-right vision, and less than that supports the centrist vision. Now, what exactly do they stand for? Maybe this is too histrionic. Maybe we're getting bent out of shape for no reason. So consider the evidence. In January, Elon Musk went to an AfD rally, and he said something that generated rapturous, ecstatic applause, and it was a talking point of AfD. He said, and I'm quoting here, I quote, "There is too much focus on the past guilt, and we need to move beyond that." Ecstatic applause. In other words, the position that is now the most popular position is the "let's move beyond the Holocaust" party. And we ignore that at our peril. And we ignore Elon Musk's Heil Hitler salute at the inauguration at our peril. And we ignore all of this support. The Vice President of the United States going to Germany and lecturing Germans' leadership that they have to not have a firewall at our peril. So 80 years later, that is why Hilberg is going on a plane again to go to Normandy. Now here's the good news. All of that is sobering, but here's the good news. Our most ancient texts and our most sacred texts tell us that this is not surprising and this is not shocking. And if anything, we can expect that it has happened, it is happening, and it will happen. And all of you who did a Seder 2 weeks ago, you said these words, as did the 800 Jewish soldiers of the Rainbow Division say these words in 1945. The words are from the Haggadah. B'chol dor v'dor omdim aleinu l'chalotenu. In every generation, there's going to be an enemy that's going to try to destroy us. We never arrive. We never cross the finish line. We never spike the football. We never just score a touchdown and just say, it's done, we're done, it's over. That never happens. Never happens. B'chol dor v'dor omdim aleinu l'chalotenu. In every generation, we have this issue. V'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. But God is going to send human agency to help change this world. God sent the Rainbow Division. God sends people of courage. And the question is, how is God going to send us? V'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. Now, at that Rainbow Division Seder, this General Collins, who is not Jewish, he said something to the Jewish soldiers that is as prophetic as Isaiah or Jeremiah. He said, the celebration of Passover should have unusual significance for you at this time. For like your ancestors of old, you too are now engaged in a battle for freedom against a modern Pharaoh. This Pharaoh has sought not only to enslave your people, but to make slaves of the whole world. God grant that victory for us will make it possible for you to celebrate the next Passover with your loved ones at home in a world that you helped make free. And General Collins' prayer was answered. All those Jewish soldiers in the Rainbow Division, Pesach 1946, were at home, at peace with their family and loved ones in a world that they made free. Now, what does that mean for us now? And that in turn raises the question, what's the significance of a rainbow? It's the Rainbow Division. It's the Rainbow Haggadah. What's the message of a rainbow? We know two things about rainbows from the Bible and from life. Number one, rainbows frequently follow storms. Rainbows don't happen on gorgeous, beautiful days without weather. Rainbows follow storms. And the primordial, classical, archetypal rainbow in Parshat Noach follows a storm that is just so destructive it destroys the world, and then the rainbow. And the rainbow is this sign that after the loss, after the death, after the trauma, there will be life and there will be hope again. But here's the second thing we know about rainbows. They're luminous and numinous and hazy and gauzy. They're there and they're not there. They're real and they're not real. They're beautiful but ephemeral. They're hopeful but evanescent. They're here one moment and gone the next. This rainbow, this luminous, numinous hope thing has to be renewed. A storm is brewing. The question is, will there be a rainbow? And that's why Hilbert Margol went at 100 and is going again at 101 to Normandy, because he's still in the fight against hate. And that's incredible and inspirational and beautiful. But he's 101. If there is going to be another rainbow, and if there is going to be another Rainbow Division now, it's on us. Shabbat Shalom.